Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Electromagnetic Ion Emission Weaponry, written by Farmwhich4275. As always, if you like the story, head over to the link down below and show the authors some love so that they know that you enjoy their work. Anyways, on to the story. 700 years of war preceded present circumstances. 700 years of us facing the same absurd dice roll. Millions of losses, hundreds of thousands of ships destroyed, and dozens of planets on both sides reduced to glass. 7 centuries of the same back and forth, and an entire border zone rendered uninhabitable thanks to countless battles fought in and around them. 700 cycles of miserable pointless war. Every attempt to negotiation failed. Every chance at diplomacy failed. And it's not like we were the good guys here. No, we weren't. We gave in to as much backstabbery and skullduggery as they did, looking for any and all chances we could snatch out of the void as they did. When a peace treaty was signed, we would sneak in a fleet behind their lines. They did too. When we had a chance to relax, we would build secret shipyards outside our lines and double the size of our fleets. So did they, back and forth and back, over and over. The Serenian and the Kamikandi War, the so-called galactic border dispute, had been raging since we first knew each other, and they claimed the same systems after first contact. Neither backed down, neither surrendered, neither cared. 6 weeks ago, that changed completely. We got word from our spies that the Kamikani had made first contact with a new species on the galaxy's western arm, and lost a battle 40-1. That is why I'm here with a small crew on the outskirts of Terran space, quietly humming away in a silent, at least as far as we can tell, cloaked infiltrating frigate, hoping to catch a battle and see how it is handled, or maybe to talk to them if nothing else happens. Hopefully. I sat in the captain's chair, a very lofty position considering I have no experience with being on the helm of a ship, and waited for anything to happen. No idea what was the real procedure here. This was the first time in 7 centuries we bothered having any real first contact, and it seemed the empire in front of us was barely getting its foothold beyond the cradle. I saw a fleet of maybe 40 ships in total, half of which were cargo freighters or shipping vessels. One of them appeared to be a ship dedicated exclusively to medical operations and rescue. The signs pointed to a young empire or a backwater colony with a private navy. I was here to find out why a fleet only twice this size felled a fleet 40 times that. Something in the equation was missing a variable. We sat there for several hours. Quiet. No transmissions. No activity. Our craft was experimental. We barely knew what this thing could do. And after several hours of just sitting around wondering what to do, speculation, quiet contemplation, and careful scanning, we got bored. Do they even know that we are here yet? I asked, finally breaking the silence. Well, they know something is here. They did their own scans, and I intercepted a few random broadcasts of radio chatter. From what I can tell, they don't know we specifically are here, Ensign replied. I thought aloud a bit. Maybe it would be a good idea to say hello and get in their good graces. I have some intel they may want that. We do, my lord? Ensign asked as she spun around to look at me. I just shrugged and retrieved a nearby folder. According to the file I was given, there is a Kamikani war fleet assembling in a nearby system. Must be gearing up to attack this one. They would probably want to know about that. Assuming, of course, they don't already. My intel says 200 ships, likely more, one of which is a dreadnought. The crew all looked at me with a certain level of suspicion and shock, and then went back to their jobs. I waited for a few more minutes, and soon I got a few more answers. The ship's navigation officer spoke up above the quiet. My lord, jump drive signatures detected. Multiple Kamikani warships inbound. There's no way there could be that fleet. How many signatures? I asked. 35, sir. Seems to be a scout fleet. Looks like they're here to probe the defenses before the main fleet arrives. The same tactic they use on us, then. Seems a bit large for a test fleet. Double-check all systems. Scanners ready. Make sure every turret we have is sending and recording data straight to the data core. I don't want to miss anything, I barked, and the crew instantly got to work. Officers ran through the bridge. I hastily got up off my chair and placed all the data I had on the table nearby and started combing through them. I used some of the ship's processing power, a small enough amount that I wouldn't be noticed, to use some nearby screens and tap into the feeds myself. The Kimbakani warships approached the human settlement with careless abandon typical of their tactics. That was the only thing the Kimbakani knew how to do, rush with massed numbers. The only reason those numbers don't work on us is because we have the slight edge in being able to fly circles around them with our faster ships. The Terran fleets immediately noticed and moved to engage the threat as hastily gasped curse words filled every comms network. Not very subtle, as usual. The Terran ships assembled, most either hastily leaving the system, presumably to call for reinforcements, or retreating to hide on the planet's surface. It looked like an overwhelming victory for the Kimbakani. "My lord, abnormal energy signatures detected everywhere. There's a satellite network in orbit as well as multiple planetary energy signatures. The readings are concerning," Ensign yelled from a console. "What do you mean?" I walked over to her console and looked at the numbers. There was no way this was real. We then got our answer. Several bolts of white-hot purple laser fire blasted from the planet's surface and hit every Kimbakani ship in perfect concert. We saw a multiple gigawatt-level energy release that only lasted milliseconds, followed by every Kimbakani warship getting hit. Shields failed, engines died, reactors shut down. I sent orders to collect some direct scans. "Impossible! How did they do that?" my engineer asked. "Do what? What's going on?" I asked. "The Kimbakani ships, they've shut down completely. Every wire and cable burned out, every circuit fried, every fuse blown. Reactors are failing, half are going supercritical, while others are just shutting down or melting. Every shield array they have is melted or offline, and weapons systems seem to be overloaded, and some of the ammunition storage is overheating. What devil magic is this? Scanning life signs. How is that possible? No ship casualties. Every ship is a full crew complement untouched," the engineer said, a definitive tone of pure terror in his voice. "So the reports from our spies were true. The humans do have some kind of secret weapon. I wonder what it is, though. Can we do more scans?" I asked. "Well, we can't." Ensign's scans were cut short as several disabled warships exploded. The largest ship produced a detonation that obliterated the 3 ships flanking it. The rest of the fleet was then summarily disassembled by cannon fire from the human fleet with no resistance. The ships were destroyed in short order. "What I was going to say is, we can't risk any further scans without alerting the defense fleet. And judging by the communications officer's face, it looks like the Terrans had already called in reinforcements. Our time here is short," Ensign replied, glaring at me with her "get us out of here now" stare. "I have orders directly from the King and the Admiralty Board. We don't leave until we know what's going on. I guess there's nothing for it. Open all channels," I ordered. I returned to my standing desk and stood tall, making sure my suit was neat and tidy. Received a return signal on channel 23, patching it through, converting the signal and sending it through translators. Got it. My comms officer worked a lot faster than I remember. Must be excited. A holoscreen appeared and showed a very, very angry-looking creature that fit the profile in my notes. Mammalian, very rare. 2 eyes indicating predatory capacity. I couldn't make out other details, as its face was hidden mostly by a mask with pipes leading behind it. I noticed one of its eyes was different from the other. Cybernetics, apparently very advanced cybernetics. It looked at me and tilted its head. "You are new." "Same to you, human," I replied in kind. "And what, pray tell, brings thy kind to our unholy neck of the woods? What is thy business, as fair blue-skinned and pointy-eared one?" he asked. His voice seemed more machine-like than organic. Clearly his cybernetics went a lot farther than expected. I considered that a compliment and spoke with what little authority I had. "My name is Thrax Thrantar of Clan Ulicum, diplomatic orderly of the Serenai Kingdoms. The ships you just wiped out the map belong to the Kimbakani, an empire my people have been at war with for 7 centuries. Quite an age, one might say. Far too long for any war to be reasonably waged, at least to us. I must ask for context behind this in the future. But for now, I must inquire what brings you specifically here," it said, the strange mechanical voice seeming almost melodic somehow. "We fought these rats for centuries in a constant stalemate. No matter how it went, we would always be back to square one. Then you showed up and magically defeated a fleet that outclasses one of yours 40-1. I've been sent to determine why," I replied calmly. "I see. And what have you learned so far?" he said. "That you need to call for more reinforcements." I held up one of the reports I had with me, displaying several intel documents relating to the enemy fleet assembling 2 systems away. "There was a probing attack to test your defenses. I would recommend whatever weapons you have be ready to fire again. That is pertinent information. We knew that they were assembling, but had no trace of their numbers, which are concerningly large. Judging by previous encounters, it would seem that numbers will grow much larger. But the statement remains. How can one trust thee? He asked, tilting his head curiously. I turned to the crew. Decloak and disable shields and weapons. But, my lord, I said to decloak and disable weapons and shields, I barked. My orders were obeyed, and the mirror coating on our ship faded away. I felt a distinct rumble within the ship's structure as shields powered down and weapons returned to FTL housings inside the hull. Here we are, naked and unvarnished. Would I wish harm if I did this? Go on, scan us, see for yourself, I said, standing proud. He looked at me curiously and waved a hand. Seconds later, the stupidly huge warship he was in suddenly appeared next to us. It seemed the larger, more expensive ships had built-in slip drives that allowed them to jump short distances in subspace. That was important to know. Quite a delightful construct. Curvaceous, sweet. She's young, barely a few cycles. No sisters or brothers to speak of. The machine's soul is young, vibrant. Scared to see the universe for the first time, but excited. She fears my cannons, an experimental prototype cruiser with refraction-based nanomirrors mounted on the hull plating, heat sinks, and some of the most advanced scanning equipment I have seen thus far. Quite the impressive piece of machinery you have. Nowhere near one of our strategic assault cruisers, to be certain, but still quite a beautiful beast. His voice carried a tone more of a priest looking over a holy relic than an engineer. He also knew a lot more than he should. You are quite frightening, you know that, I remarked, not sure what else to say. Indeed. Perhaps to the unenlightened I may be. To my own kind I am but a strange quirk of my species. We have learned to listen to the machine, at least to a certain extent. I guess it's a bit deeper, but perhaps something for another day, he said. He looked down at his console as a red flashing light came from his console. Oh, what a little light! The Jovian Royal Navy has responded to our call. How most agreeable. Just in time, it would seem. A few moments later, the navigations officer squealed in terror as he noted the fleet that had appeared in the star system behind one of the colony's moons. 64 ships, a very elaborate and sleek design with blue and gold coloration. Jovian Royal Navy? Are they the new species that we have to talk to? I asked. He laughed, hearty and heavily, half mocking me, half mocking himself. No, friend. We humans are a fractious, tribal species. We have our own squabbles amongst each other. But now we have a common enemy to fight, and such petty nonsense has been put to rest, at least for a time. In any case, you wish to know our weapons secrets, then? I was taken aback by that, stunned. Yes, please? Then recloak, reactivate your shields and recording equipment, and watch the fireworks. With a preface, we weaponized our star's tantrums. Know this, and the coming observations will be informative. Let's see if you can figure it out of your own volition, shall we? He closed the comm, but kept the channel open and returned to formation with a newly arrived fleet. Cloak us and move to recomposition 228, I ordered, and the crew followed my commands breathlessly. We quickly moved to the better, more advantageous spot where we would have a clear view. I waited, sure enough. Around half an hour later, the Kumbhakani fleet arrived in droves. 284 ships, a fleet that would normally make one of our own fleet admirals nervous. A flurry of speeches and hastily gasped curse words filled every radio chatter frequency that we could hear as the enemy began its advance. I directed my officers to use specific energy waves and radio spectrum scans. Moments later, the Kumbhakani fleet was hit with an even greater burst of those strange purple energy weapons. Deeper scans, riskier ones quickly returned details. I was starting to piece it together bit by bit as we watched the torrent of data across the screens. The enemy fleet was quickly wiped out with little effort. Once again, the same damage pattern. The shields would overload instantly and either shut down or fry. When the purple bolts hit the hull, an electrical surge of some kind would overload every point of electrical current to where cables and joints would meet or catch fire. Reactors engaged their emergency shutdown procedures, and at least a third failed to do that, and either melted down or went supercritical from overload. Weapon hardpoints would fail, either from the power surge blowing their motors and connections, or from the ammunition load detonating. Every circuit and every connection fried to the point of becoming silicate charcoal, or melted down completely, with some systems outright catching fire or simply getting so damaged they instantly became non-functional. "I don't know how they did it, but I think I have an idea now," I said idly. "And do you? Enlighten me. What do we do?" the human said, his image appearing again. He was watching. "Well, near as I can tell from your statement earlier and the damage patterns that we are observing, did you find some way to weaponize the way stars work during a solar storm? It seems that you've directed energy weapons that causes direct star flare of some kind," I said. "I wasn't expecting you to get that on the first try. Most impressive. It's a bit more complex, and yes, we do use some form of ion emission weaponry. Most ships have at least one of these such weapons somewhere. The idea is to use a short burst of energy that will disable or fry electronics, or at least distort or disable shields. It would appear, however, from our observations, that these Kumbakani ships are unusually susceptible to electromagnetic or ion discharge. We have yet to find out why. Perhaps that is information you should take home to your masters. I wonder, though, do your ships have a different system, or did the concept slip your mind as such that you have the same level of resistance to the damage we produce?" he remarked coldly. I could almost see a smirk on his face. "I'd rather not find out," I said. "Then perhaps we should meet on more professional grounds another time. Mayhap your leader class would like to join us at a banquet, say 2 weeks hence. I'm sure the Kimbakani will cease their idiocy for at least a while after this loss. Maybe we can talk at length about future plans. You seem significantly more friendly than our erstwhile foe," he said. That sounds wonderful. I have a question, though. Why do you shoot the ships after you've effectively disabled them? The Kumbakani aren't complete idiots. Mostly. It's the word mostly that we disagree with. They seem especially aggressive with us for reasons as yet unknown. Tried to capture them alive so many times, they seem to go berserk for one reason or another upon our arrival, despite the fact that we wish only to take them alive and stop the bloodshed. It was they who raised their claws first. We are simply responding in kind until such time as their bloodlust can be sated or silenced, and voices of reason can be instead heard. For now we leave no survivors, at least to reason. Do unto them before they do unto us, he said with a shrug. I could sense a distinct tone of sadness in that statement. I see, that seems to be the standard for us as well, I'm afraid, although not quite as vile as with you. Perhaps there is a means for cooperation in the future. The Kimbakani are strangely submissive when we take them prisoner usually. It might be something to think about, I said. He tilted his head again. Indeed. Hopefully soon as well. I grow tired of this meaningless waste of life. I, for one, feel ill when I have to give the final firing orders. Thinking of such devastation. All those men in agony and misery. But safety of my crew and operations is more important at the end of the day. I refuse to have what happened the last time we took prisoners occur again, he said. And what exactly I shall not speak of that abominable circumstance. At least not in polite company. Let me simply say that the Kumbakani seem to be almost rabid when we are in the room. Why, we are yet to understand. They lose control, sometimes in ways I dare not speak of in public. So until we find a way to study this properly, a circumstance you might yet facilitate, perhaps we can find a way to more safely end this bloodshed. For now, you must go. The Terran Federal Navy is coming, and they are not quite as agreeable as the Jovian Navy is. They can be more direct. I would rather avoid the paperwork pile for now. Please, make haste and fly safe and sure to thy home, friend. Much work to do, in earnest, no less, he said, and gave a bow to the camera. I returned the bow politely and ordered FTL prep to start. I'll make sure that all this is heard by the Council and the King. Hopefully we'll see you sooner than later. Ciao, Bella, monsieur, he said, and closed the connection. I looked to my engineer. So, while the jump drive is charging, looking at the numbers, do you think that we could survive one of those blasts? Not by a long shot. Our ships are built with a higher resistance than theirs, but those things produce an electromagnetic discharge that would fry any ship we have in the fleet. It isn't a matter of design, it is a matter of sheer power output. I have to wonder what kinds of reactors those ships have, because those things have to produce unholy amounts of energy for this kind of damage. Either that, or they have some kind of capacitor discharge system that they use to augment the blast. I have some basic scans, but this tech is far beyond anything I know. These humans are a lot more advanced than they are allowing us to see, as far as I can tell. Let's hope they don't turn on us, he said. They will not, I stated plainly, and returned to my seat and jump drive finished charging. Home, we have work to do. Maybe we can finally end this once and for all. Aye, my lord. End of the story. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Caspar Arnholtz, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.